Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Jaws, and obviously I've got a Reinforce here to the left of me. This is Compcast, and this episode, or this video, we're basically going to be talking about the new Paris squad and how it could look going into OWL Season 2. Because on paper, this squad is actually fairly scary. A lot of OWL players and a lot of Contenders players that have been brought up, and it was kind of a lot of foresight. I think a lot of the Contenders players were going to move up, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity having a European team filled with a lot of European Contenders players and a couple of people from OWL as well. So I thought we'd just go over this, and why not just start with the tanks, Ben Best, LH Cloudy and Fincy. We'll start with Fincy first because we haven't seen a whole bunch of him, but he was picked up by Valiant in Season 1.
Yeah, for sure. Now, first, I just want to say, long have we awaited. Finally, we're getting a European team, okay? There's no Koreans, and there's no North Americans. So we can just see how good Europe really is, or how good France is, depending on how you see things. It's Paris. There's a lot of French players. But I'm really excited about this lineup, because it has some similarity to Philadelphia Fusion last season, I think, where we really weren't expecting Philadelphia Fusion to do that well with so many European players. But then in the end, they really nailed it down and made the grand finals, etc. So I'm really looking forward to this team. There's tons of skill on this team. But the question is, can they sustain themselves throughout a season, So, as you said, we're going to break down each player individually first. And starting with the tanks, my specialty, of course.
Yep.
The tank guy, the tank main. We got Ben Best, Cloudy, and Fincy. So, yeah, Fincy, as you mentioned, he's one of the few members on this team that has actually been in the Overwatch League. He got picked up by Valiant mid-season and spent all of his time on the bench. I'm not really sure if he even played a game. So, that's a bit of a question mark because we don't know how good Fincy really is. I reckon that being part of Valiant, having proper coaching, etc., he's learned a lot, especially becoming a smarter player. And that's what you need on the off-tank role. But if his individual skill, if his mechanics are really there, no one really knows. We haven't seen any games come out from him because obviously Iceland, not really in the World Cup. Not this year anyway. So yeah, I can't really tell you much about Fincy. I know that he has great tracking. He even played some Soldier in the past. So expect good Zarya play, Soldier play, and Diva play coming out of that guy. But, we have to see how he performs first before we can really judge how good he is.
Yeah, that's the scary thing, because he could have spent all that time on Valiant, building up this repertoire of knowledge, being around players that are playing in OWL, and being around the coaching staff and analysts and all that as well, and just kind of harvested all of that, and is now bringing it to Paris. But not having him played is kind of a big question mark. He was in Contender Season 1 as well.
Yeah, to be fair, he's sharing the slot with Space, who's like one of the best off tanks in the world. So we don't really expect to see him, but maybe if you're playing Shanghai Dragons, we saw KSF and Numlock come in once or twice, but we didn't see Fincy at all. So some question marks left there.
Because he did play in Contenders, and he didn't play much Contenders at all because he got picked almost immediately up by Valiant, and it was kind of one of the players that just disappeared after like the first couple of weeks, and it was like, well, I guess we won't see them again because they're on an OWL squad or they're on like an academy squad or whatever.
Well, the plan was for a sister team, right? For Valiant, they picked up so many players, and they wanted a sister team so they could scrim each other. So Numlock even mentioned this during the season that he really wasn't involved in scrims whatsoever.
Yes, I do remember that actually.
People, yeah. So we don't really know how much scrim experience Fincy necessarily has, but aside from that, he still got picked up for an Overwatch League team, and obviously they had tryouts and all of that. So he's not a bad player. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is like top tank, top off tank in the league. That's what we're not really sure of yet, or is he just in between, middle of the pack sort of?
Yeah. Well, we have got two main tanks backing them up in Ben Best and Cloudy, who have been around Contenders for 2 big seasons and been around a long time as well. LH Cloudy spent a little bit of time on Florida as well, the academy roster, which was pretty scary. I was like, man, I can't wait to see LH Cloudy just wreck NA, and it was like, oh well, now he's off at Florida Academy. It kind of sucks. But he did come from Giganti, who have just been a dominant force throughout Contenders through Season 1 and Season 2. Honestly, looking unstoppable. And LH Cloudy has always been just the top tier Rhine main in EU, and I can imagine he'll continue to be this top tier Ryan main. And we've always looked at Ben Best in the way that, like, his Ryan was okay in season 1, season 2. Like, it's never been the best in the league because we've got so many good tank players that come from Europe, and he was really just not relegated, sorry, but like put on this Winston spot, which they were very good at actually using, because they were very good at dive. And when I say they, I mean Eagle Gaming. They were very good at diving, and with Nico's Genji, which is also really proficient. So I can imagine that's what we're going to see, is LH Cloudy like stick on this more Rhine heavy role, and then we're going to see Ben Best on when they want to flip into dive compositions. Would make a lot more sense, because that's what Giganti were so good at, utilizing this Ryan and just protecting Cloudy and just being the driving force behind him to not allow him to put shield up. It's like, okay, go, you just swing and then get shadows like ASAP, and then we'll set up with a massive Giganti bomb with RCK.
Ways, you know, he is Fraggy Junior, sort of. He's always been in the shadow of Fraggy, and even since I started playing in 2016 or 2015, you know, Cloudy was always there, so he was always a young prodigy, sort of developing himself within the Finnish scene, and I played him multiple times in ranked as well, and he was one of the few Reinhardts that I really struggled against, because he was just so good. But because Fraggy was on Giganti at the time and Ninja in pajamas, he really didn't get a chance to show himself. But now with Fraggy in Philadelphia Fusion and Cloudy now playing for Giganti and showcasing his skill, I think, you know, this is just a start of a great career for Cloudy, because I think he has enormous potential. There was a reason that Florida Mayhem probably wanted to pick him up as well for a 2-way contract. The question is, though, like, how good is this Winston? Because you say his Reinhardt, it is one of the better ones, if not the best ones in Europe. But it always comes down to the Winston play. For many of these European and North American main tanks, you know, do they have the Winston to be on par with the Koreans, because it's such a different role? But given that he's a really young guy, right? He's like 18 or 19.
Yeah, he's super young. I'm not entirely sure the age, but yeah, he's got a lot of room to grow.
Time. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm expecting good things from Cloudy. Maybe not even this season. Maybe they play Ben Best, but you know, maybe it's season 3. I think Cloudy is a great name to have in your roster.
Yeah, that's why I think they'll switch it up, like sub in and sub out Ben Best and Cloudy, like quite often, because if it's like, oh, we've got these maps, you know, we prefer Rhine compositions and that's what we've been performing well on, well, that makes sense. Let's put in Cloudy. That's cool. Okay, we've got Ben Best now, who's really good on Winston. Let's actually switch him up into these maps because we prefer Winston on these maps and dive on these maps. When it comes to like changing midway through the game, that's where I don't think they'll struggle per se, but their favored hero is always going to be the Rhine or the Winston if you're Cloudy or Ben Best. And Ben Best, like, especially in season 1, he didn't have the craziest of performances on Winston. There were a few times where he'd like jump in half HP, or like jump in when he was discorded, and it was like, you could just wait and then just kind of just hold fire just a little bit. He was very ready to go. Just go. That's what his how he liked to play. That was what he wanted to do. We just push this momentum, right? But he did really tighten that up in season 2, and you could see how much Eagle Gaming had worked on that, and that's why he's now probably one of the better Winstons in EU as well. Yeah, and probably why he's picked up.
When you say that, that's like one of the biggest flaws, I think. If you go into the Overwatch League as a main tank, that's one of the biggest flaws you can have, is taking too much damage and initiating when you're too low HP. Because the thing is, in the Overwatch League, there is so much more pressure put on you on every role. You know, there's no room for error or mistakes whatsoever. And so especially if you're a main tank, you're going to take a lot more damage. You're going to take way more poke that you don't necessarily do in contenders, which means that you have less time, obviously, to set up things, because you need to, you know, play really fast, you with good pace. And so when you say that about Ben Best, that makes me a bit worried, because what I can imagine is him maybe taking 1 or 2 seconds too long. He takes a bit too much damage, and essentially the dive is ruined. But as you said, he looked better as of recent, so maybe he's worked on that. But that could be a worrying sign, I think, if you're a main tank.
He looked really good in the Paris World Cup stage.
Okay, fair enough. You know,
he did. He was also
a lot of goats, though.
Yeah,
that was really. That was probably one of the worst stops.
I mean, that was the funniest stop, because not only was ZP casting it, and he hates tanks, and every time I talk to him, he always complains about tanks and like quad tank and goats and stuff, and it's just the best stop for him to cast because it was just more tank play, which is great. But speaking about his teammates, he does have and will be playing with basically the French squad yet again in Soon and Nico on the DPS spots. In fact, they have 4 DPS. They got Shadowburn, who was recently let go, and he's been milling around a little bit. And then everybody was like, "Why is Shadowburn not signed?" There was like 4,000 Reddit threads on why Shadowburn's the greatest Genji we'll ever see.
Some good highlights, you know.
Exactly.
Some of the best.
So. And then we've got Danier as well, Polish superstar, coming through, which is also really exciting. He was honestly the best player on Poland. I can't find many people that kind of disagree with that in that stage. He tried so hard to like hard carry Poland to victory. So 4 DPS slots, and then you have Soon as well, just this veteran DPS of Valiant and obviously of Team France too. So there's a lot of history with every single one of these players, and again 2 French spots as well. I'm like, okay, Paris know what they want to go for here.
Yeah, exactly. Do you just want to start talking about Soon? Because I feel like looking at these 4 DPS players, he's like the one solid DPS player you probably always want in the game. That's how I feel like anyway. His hit scan is so good across the board, you know, whether it's Widowmaker, Tracer, McCree, Soldier. He even put out a tweet that he's trying to adapt and learn new heroes like Roadhog and the Zarya, of course. So I think this guy will be one of the more solid players in the roster, where he can flex to a lot of different heroes, whereas in Valiant he really didn't get that much room to do so. He played a lot of Widowmaker and a lot of Tracer, but they always swapped around with Bunny, etc., and so he didn't get that much room to really showcase himself. But I feel like comparing him to all the other DPS in this lineup, Soon should be the superstar in this team. And I say that not because Shadowburn isn't looking good when he's playing. I mean, it's Shadowburn, so he will, you know, get some highlights. But because I think that Soon is consistent enough across so many heroes that you sort of need him to pop off every single game. Because I don't know if Nico, Danya, or even Shadowburn can do that and win these crucial fights for Paris when they need it. You know, that when they need a Carpe moment to just win a fight based on great DPS play. Soon has to fill that void in this roster, I feel like, and you know, start going ham, which he has done as of recent on the Widowmaker Tracer, but all the other heroes as well, depending on the meta. I
mean, that would paint a picture where he's permanently on the field. Then not going to be a bench player. It would make it would make a lot of sense because he's already got that experience of playing on stage 2, and Nico's been around for a long time, but L stage is very different to World Cup stage, and obviously playing a ton of contenders. Obviously he was on Rogue too, and it's just an entirely different environment. Shadowburn as well, so I wouldn't be honestly too surprised to see Soon and Shadowburn is starting, and then they swap Nico in when they feel like it's necessary. Nico's Zarya is very good, and he is able to play Genji like extraordinarily well, like we know. And there was only really a few times in early season 2 in contenders where he was playing the Genji, and then it kind of like ramped up a little bit. We saw a little bit more, and his ability to control the pace of the game as Genji was just like fantastic. And Eagle Gaming used to fake blades like a lot, not a lot, there was a few times they faked blades, but every time they faked a blade it like won them the game like hand in. So like they would nano Nico, and then the enemy team would pop trance instantly because they heard the nano go off because they expect blade, and then he's like, haha, guess what, I've got blade. Like I can imagine Nico is going to be pulled in for the moments where they need like a Genji that can also flex onto a tank. So I'm not sure about Shadowburn's tank play, and
there's a lot of Genji players.
There is, and that's what I'm actually really scared of, is the fact that when does Nico or Danya actually get to play? But then Danya is also just an all-round player. There's not one hero or one DPS that I'm like, maybe he won't play. How good is he though?
Because he played for Copenhagen Flames in contenders.
Yeah.
Not one of the best teams in contenders. And then Team Poland, you can't really hype them up too much. Well, he was a star player on that team, but like, looking at Copenhagen Flames and his contenders play, can we expect like Overwatch League gameplay from Danye?
See, that's what I don't know, and honestly, I think it's one of the players you pick up to develop into like a fantastic player, because he's already got raw mechanical skill.
Sure,
like high level of game sense as well. Like I said, he was like almost hard carrying Poland in some of the games. It's like, well, there's 4 dead for Poland, but Darnier's still alive, and then he like kills 3 people. You're just like, okay, cool, and then he recalls a tracer of full HP, caps the point, kind of thing. I think he's already got the game sense, the mechanical skill to kind of develop into a player that can just be phenomenal and compete on the level of Soon. I don't think he's there just yet, but still, he's like a Polish prodigy. I think he will at the end be able to compete up on the stage against the Korean DPS players, against London Spitfire, etc., etc. But it's just going to take him a little time, and I think that's why they picked up Nico and Darnier, to like mold them into players that they want to play with, because they've got 2 veteran DPS that can give them so much through just watching them play, scrimming with them, and just the experience they can unload on them is just insane.
Well, I feel like looking at these DPS players, Darnier has to pop off as well, right? Because Shadowburn has some issues in Philadelphia Fusion, right? There's a reason why EQO immediately just replaced Shadowburn and just kept on going. Shadowburn never saw the light of day. And that was because Shadowburn had some obvious issues with his playstyle, where he wasn't aggressive enough, he played really passive, he held on to blades forever. You know, and we can talk about his Pharah play and how amazing that is, but Pharah isn't really a hero that you see on every map, on every point, that can carry a game. It only really happens on maybe 1 or 2 control rounds, you know? So I'm not too sure about Shadowburn being a superstar DPS player for this team in Overwatch League. And so I'm looking at people like Darnier. Can Darnier step up and maybe mold into more of a superstar DPS player alongside Soon? And looking at Nico, where he comes into the discussion as well, where he was part of the notorious Rogue lineup that was so good in 2017. And he was considered one of the weakest players on that team, and now he's known for a bit more of his diva play, dare I say, in contenders.
Yeah, Diva Zaya, yeah.
And so his DPS play isn't really that fleshed out either. He's listed as a DPS player. I could even see him, you know, fighting with Finzi a bit for the off-tank spot at moments if they decide to go maybe Ben Best and Nico for a French frontline, you know. And so I'm really looking at these DPS players, and I'm really only excited about Soon. And then I have a lot of question marks and a lot of doubts when it comes to Shadowburn, Nico, and Darnier. And here's where the coaching comes into play. And a lot of people have already mentioned this on other podcasts or articles or even Reddit whatsoever. The coaching really has to step up for Paris and mold these players into superstar DPS players, because Darnier needs to really shine alongside Soon, I feel like, because Shadowburn, I don't really believe that he's going to find a consistent projectile DPS slot, because he had his chance in Fusion and he really didn't, you know, make use of it for the better. And so, sure, his highlight montages are great, but Darnier, in my opinion, has to be the guy that steps up among these 4 DPS players.
Darnier is really aggressive, though. I guess that's the difference between him and Shadowburn.
Yeah, that's what we like. French players in general are really aggressive in terms of their playstyle. You know, they love pushing spawns, just like Rogue back in the day, and that has sort of molded the rest of the French scene to continue playing aggressive and holding spawn doors and leave someone on the payload. That's pretty much how I know, anyway. That's how pretty much every French player in Overwatch plays, because they saw that the Rogue lineup did that, and now they're all really aggressive players. And so I'm just hoping that we see something similar, where maybe they mold Darnier into a very aggressive player that's really efficient and can play with Soon, because that's what this team needs if they want to qualify for playoffs.
Is another DPS that can step up. I'm ready for Darnier just to play first game and just wow everybody. It just comes out the gate, just like 1v6s, like no problem. Like, okay, I'll see you later then. Okay. I think he can.
Cause call that contender syndrome for you, Jaws?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Bit World Cup syndrome as well.
Man.
Well,
I'm a bit doubtful.
If he wants to play that aggressive, and he can be, that's the thing. Like, he was aggressive on Team Poland. He was aggressive on Copenhagen Flames. Contenders was all about just, like, literally overwhelming your opponent to the point where they can't play the game. And, like, that's what a lot of teams, I think, did. Not, like, with tank play from, like, Angry Titans, for example. They quad tank, just run at them. It's like, oh, okay, you're all dead because you got out-pressured and you don't know how to fall back on that. And I think Darnier can do the same thing, but on DPS. Like, him and Soon, like you mentioned, Soon wants to and will play aggressive. I think Darnier can match him in that regard, because Darnier's tracer is insane. And
but that's what you need, right? So it's, you know, prove it.
Yeah, obviously this is all going to be about proving if you can actually play the game at the highest level, because not only are we going into Season 2 with loads of new players, we're also seeing 8 new expansion teams, and we're seeing return of every other player, almost every player that was in Season 1, and the game has been upped from Season 1. It will continue to go up and up and up. The level of play in Overwatch will continue to go up until, you know, Season 7, I don't know how many seasons, like, until we get like 100 expansion teams, you know what I mean? Like, it will continue to rise, and that's just what happens in competitive games. So,
yeah.
Season 1, you can't really look at that, I guess, and compare it to Season 2 in the way that you could for Contenders, because Contenders is very, like, there's three stages in the year. We can't look at Year 1 Overwatch League and then go, okay, they're going to be the same. No, London Spitfire are going to be better. MXL are going to be better. Like, Dragons, they're going to be better. They just got a new lineup, but yeah. Okay, so supporting them out, only 2 slots. So the least roles filled in the lineup in the support role. We have Hip and Cruz. Now, Cruz has been around Contenders a whole lot of times, and he's been on Reunited. Hip has been on Eagle Gaming for the longest time, and Gamers Origin 2. Hip is just an absolute boss. He's also super nice in person. He's the most talkative of the French lot, like, hands down.
Yeah.
Like, it's always really hard to, like, get information out of Eagle Gaming. Like, I tell this story a lot, but when you sit down and you're like, okay, so, like, how have you been doing? Like, how Scrim's going, X, Y, and Z? And they're just like, yeah, it's good. I'm just like, okay, anything else you can, like, tell me? And they're just like, no, it's pretty good. We're doing all right. We win. And then we respect our opponents and stuff. And I'm like, come on. But Hip speaks a lot, so that's going to be pretty exciting. And then Cruz, who's so experienced and, like, such a veteran, is going to be rounding out the support lineup.
Yeah, so my biggest question, looking at these support players, is leadership, because you need that in the Overwatch League. And looking at Cruz, I have a lot of respect for this guy, because he had to change his role multiple times in the history of Overwatch. He used to play the Genji and was considered a DPS player, and then he swapped over to the Lucio, and he had to learn a new role, and he was really good mechanically. He started shot calling, and he was so good. He joined Orglas in Hungary after the United disbanded, and then immediately got picked up for Toronto, where he just took a chance on an academy team and decided he really wanted to be a successful Overwatch player. So I have a lot of respect for Cruz, because he grinded it out, okay? He really played his way here and put in so much practice time and really looked at his errors and fixed them so that he could play in the Overwatch League. So I have tons of respect for this guy. But I don't know if he'll be able to stand up in this team and say, like, hey guys, things are going wrong. We need to take a mental break and just, get together as a team and play better. Because that's going to happen in the Overwatch League, right? Pretty much every team in Overwatch League Season 1 had one stage where they were garbage, where they were shit, okay? And they were down in the deep and they had to get back up, right? And so this team really needs a leader in my mind. And I'm not entirely sure if Cruz can be that guy on main support and be like, hey guys, things are going wrong. Can we just, start working as a team and start reviewing our mistakes and start collaborating? And Cruz, incredibly great shot caller, really vocal, but I don't know if he has the leadership required to really improve this team and up them to another level, because that's what you need from your main support player. For Hip, I can't really say that much because I haven't seen that much of his play, but I trust you that he's a great person and fantastic individual skill. But that's usually what flex support people do. They just showcase their skill and they just give you what you want. But someone in this team needs to step up and be more of a leader. And I'm not really seeing this looking at this team as a whole. And so Cruz, I think he'll do great individually in this role, but I don't know if he can bring, that extra to this lineup to really make the team better as a whole.
I think you've hit the nail on the head in the fact that it's fairly scary, because you've got players that have been in OWL before, and do they take the leadership role because they've played on the stage before and actually have had more experience in that sense because they've been in OWL and played against the top teams that have been and gone? Like, do you then put it on Cruz because he's super experienced? Obviously, like you said, he's been changing roles a ton, and then he became a shot caller.
Right? He's
exactly.
In Contenders.
Exactly. That's what I'm scared of.
Incredibly different.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if Cruz has what it takes. He could probably give a great argument for something, and then Finzi, Soon, and Shadowburn, having played in the Overwatch League, had proper coaching for an entire Overwatch League season. They'll probably be a lot smarter and know the finer details that you really need to know when it comes to the Overwatch League. And so there may be some tension in this team, and I don't know who is going to necessarily solve that tension. And as you said, I'm looking at Cruz, and I don't know if he's the guy. That's not blaming Cruz. I think Cruz is a great player. I have tons of respect for him. But in this lineup, I don't know how impactful he's going to be.
Yeah, I guess the experience thing and just the hierarchy of players is going to be brought into question in that regard. Yeah. Although, like, being fellow British, like, honestly, if he says something, he's like, no, fuck this, we're doing this, we're playing like garbage. Like, as long as people kind of take that feedback, and you kind of hope everybody would, right? I can imagine he'll go into that role fairly easily. Just being a little bit stern, a little bit stubborn wouldn't be such a bad thing. And Cruz like talks a shit ton as well. Like he really has got he has got a really big personality, which is obviously super important for Overwatch League. It's something that could be talked about in a separate thing entirely, but personalities on the team and just being like a marketable guy, like Cruz is definitely one of those people. And I'm hoping that kind of helps him and elevates him within the team to be that shot caller. Hip, I really want to quickly touch on him, and like he's like you said, they have to just be mechanical gods, and he is. His Zenyatta is insane, and it's going to be really good for him, I think, as just an individual player to be coupled with people like Nico and Ben Best, who he's played with before, in order to make sure you're not going to a fresh team, you know no faces, because that is the kind of danger as well if you're like stepping into a field as not necessarily just a support player, it's just as any player really, and not having immediate bonds with certain people. So I think it's actually really good for Hip that he's got a person in each role to actually say that he's played with them before. So I think that's super beneficial for him, and obviously Ben Best and Nico as well. We'll have to see if Cruz does step up in terms of shot calling and stuff. I do believe he will be the main shot caller. I can't imagine he won't be.
Probably,
But then that kind of leads us to the coaches and the support staff in the background, and something that was only just released was Coach Fefe from Team France and from Eagle Gaming has been picked up as the player development coach. We also have Damon as well, formerly LA Valiant, so that's going to be pretty exciting, and we'll see how they're both going to do too.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about the player development coaching guy. He's been in this scene for a really long time, and I've heard of him several times, so I'm sure he's going to do great. Okay, Joss, that's all I can say. I'm sure he's going to do great. But Damon is Damon. I keep saying Damon, but it's probably just Demon. He just spelled it.
It's Daemon. Damon. Yeah, that's what I thought it'd be Damon. Yeah.
Just say Demon. Okay? Just make it easier for everyone. Okay, so Demon, formerly of LA Valiant, and my biggest, not criticism, but question mark is that he was not the head coach. Okay, it was Moon who was the head coach for LA Valiant, and he sort of fostered that team and created a team atmosphere and set the demands for his players, and in many ways built a structure for the LA Valiant. And Demon was just a coach who sort of helped translating for Moon and try to fulfill that structure and try to enable those players to really shine in that structure. The question is, if he's a head coach, what will his sort of structure be, and how will his hierarchy within this team really enable the players on the roster? So I have a lot of question marks around Demon as well, not necessarily in a bad way, but in a way that we don't really know what he's going to bring to the team. I don't think you can look at LA Valiant throughout Overwatch League Season 1 and say that Demon was... How do I put this? I don't think LA Valiant was his brand of coaching, so to speak. I think that was Moon's, okay? And so Demon has to sort of set the standards for the Paris team, and we don't know what that is. We don't know what he's really going to bring as a head coach to this team. There's difference in being an analyst and sort of being part of another team and analyzing the comps and the picks, etc. But there's also an aspect to coaching which is player relations and fostering a team environment, etc. You need to be a really good people person, and I don't know how much respect necessarily Demon will have in this coach, where a lot of teams that are successful in the league, they have sort of a Korean approach where the Korean head coach is like the Zen master dude, like everyone looks up to him and just follow orders and then just play their game. Okay,
well,
I don't know what Demon is going to bring to this team, so I have some question marks around his role as a head coach. And again, not in a bad way. You know, he could be a fantastic head coach, but I can't sit here and say that I think that Demon is going to be a fantastic head coach for this team, because I don't think in the past he's necessarily had the opportunity to showcase what he's going to bring to the table as a head coach, not as an assistant coach or an analyst, as a head coach leading this team and building the structure.
I've always been a fan of the Korean way of approaching things, because like you have a Hyung, which is the older brother kind of thing, and then
yeah, you study Korean, right? So
they go, yeah, I do, yeah, I do. They have that hierarchy going down, right, and you kind of listen to that hierarchy, and it kind of works itself out in a way, because it's very easy to kind of go to a person and talk about like issues and whatnot, and then they can sort it out in that way. And I think actually what's good for Damon in this role, honestly, is the fact that he's already had and been in Al underneath someone else, so he knows exactly how things work from his position and from a position above him, like head coach. So I think that's actually crazy beneficial for him. It's just in the first couple of months how that's actually going to come about, and how it's actually going to show the team, and how the team are going to show that he is and deserves the spot of head coach, right? And I think, honestly, obviously this will be his kind of make or break moment, whether he's a head coach material or not, and it will be exciting to see that. So I'd see him develop as a person too, but I think it's already helped him immensely being that role that's below what he is now. Coach Fefe coming in as a player development coach, I think is fairly interesting in the way that I think it was going to happen at some point, and it was going to happen that he was going to be involved with the team, because he has been around the scene for a long time. He has been the coach of France, the coach of Eagle Gaming for so long, that there's no way he wasn't going to be involved, because it was the Paris spot, right? And you have French players, sorry, on the roster already. So he can not only bring a whole lot of background on these players already know him extremely well and look up to him too. So bringing this again more hierarchical guy into the lineup is not only going to help the team, it's going to help Coach Fefe, and it's going to help Damon as well in that role, because again the players have more people to look up to in that regard. Player development coach, I'm not entirely sure what that actually consists of. I'm not entirely sure. I guess it's just like building the players and just making sure they are working as a cohesive unit. Again, not sure what the player title is. I've not been one myself or been in that kind of situation before.
Well, it's also like the out of game stuff as well.
Yeah,
especially if you're in the Overwatch League, right? Then you gotta live together and you're going to work together, etc. You need to be on point in that way and build a good atmosphere. So I think a player development coach in that regard is really helpful, as I think it's more has to do with, you know, making sure everyone is happy and making sure everyone is working well together in game. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table.
Now, the French audience and the French fans are absolutely insane. And like casting the World Cup spot in Paris was just ridiculous. They are the loudest crowd I've ever cast up against. They are the most passionate. Right. So you can already.
That was pretty loud as well, I'll tell you that.
I can imagine. Actually, yeah. Like already, like expectations for this team are going to be set by the French audience like super high anyway. I think they've got a lot of individual talent on their squad, but what do you think, like predictions wise and expectations for this team coming into this season, considering we don't actually know a lot of the other rosters yet? Shanghai Dragons made their announcement at the same time ish, and it kind of got buried a little bit. But they're basically Kongdu Panthera, and they brought a lot of Kongdu players on,
which is looking pretty scary, you know.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it is.
There is a lot of good teams and a lot of good players coming into the Overwatch League season 2. But, you know, naturally, I'm excited. As I said at the start, I'm excited for this team to see what they can really bring. That being said, as I've said throughout this entire episode, there is a lot of question marks on this lineup. And I can't tell you for sure that this is going to be a superstar team, or that they're going to, you know, come into the Overwatch League and just surprise everyone by how good they are. They are lacking some experience in this lineup. There's some Overwatch League Season 1 players on the team, but not necessarily the most vocal ones or the people with the most leadership. And so the problem is going to be, how do you sort of provide that knowledge to the rest of your team, and how do you educate the rest of your team to reach this new level, which you need for Overwatch League Season 2. And so I am a bit skeptic. I think that this team is not going to be, you know, a mid-table team. I think this is a boom or bust team. Either they're going to be great and make like a top 6 run and get into the playoffs, or they're going to be pretty awful at the start, and they need to pick up a few new players and start not rebuilding necessarily, but get a few new additions in. And given that we don't really know how to build a team, maybe Demon has a better grasp because he was part of Valiant, but as many other analysts say, we don't really know what the best way to build a team is yet. And so I am a bit skeptic. I don't think that they have it all laid out and a great plan for how Season 1 is going to work. I think they'll have to do a test run and see how it works, maybe do a few mid-season pickups. But this is a boom or bust team. Either soon just evolves to an incredible superstar player with Danye lining up with him, and Benbes just is amazing, and Hip just fires from the flex support role. Or I think they'll collapse a bit and they'll need a few pickups. I am a bit worried about the leadership, and I mentioned that before. I think this team needs an older guy. So if this team, after BlizzCon, were to pick up wins, either as a coaching staff member, assistant coach, I don't give a shit, honestly, or if they bring him as a benched main support player, I think that the wins could help this team out tons. With his leadership and being of older age, and also being a really smart guy, having played with him in the past, I think he could help this team out so much, you know, to bring what this team is really missing. Because the individual skill is there, right? We have really good individual players. We just need to sort of mold them for a bit and make sure that they really reach a new caliber to make sure this team can really flourish. And so I think Demon, yeah, I think he has great coach capabilities and analyst capabilities. Can he be the top tier head coach and bring a great structure and environment? I'm not really sure. But I think that Wins could at least help out with that from the sidelines or on the bench or even play himself. I don't care. And sort of add, you know, bring what this team is really missing. And that's the only real way where I will say that this is going to be a top team. But for now, for me, this is a boom or bust team. And I think there's an equal chance that they might just collapse to this new level in Overwatch League Season 2 and have to get a few new pickups before they can really start flourishing in the league.
Yeah, I 100% agree. They need this the veterancy or a veteran player, and I think Wins would be actually a good addition. I do agree with your points. Yeah. If, however, Cruz steps up and is that veteran voice, I think that's... Team UK. Yeah, hey man, I've got a Korean jersey. I haven't actually got a UK one. I think this team can do extraordinarily well if Cruz steps up and puts himself in that role. You know, and the team accepts that, you know, and then they can push from there. Because like you said, individual talent, check mark. Veterancy of players, yes, but not vocal ones. But we have Cruz to kind of go back on. I think, again, he is going to be able to do it, personally. Just going on, like, his attitude just talking to him. Like, even from way back when he was on Toronto in Contender Season 1. Like, again, such a big personality, is able to talk the talk most of the time, is definitely the main leader of that team. When it came to, when we sat down for interviews, he was like, bam, pulled up a chair right like this far away from me, you know, like he's ready to rock and roll, he's ready to answer questions. And if he kind of brings that attitude, then 100% I think this team is going to do extraordinarily well.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying, if you start out maybe like 1-6 or something, and you start questioning yourselves, I just don't know if... soon Nico and someone else might start, you know, might stop listening to the vocal machine, which is Cruz, you know. So I'm just being a skeptic. Yeah, that's my job, you know. So I have to be a bit skeptic, and I just don't know if Cruz will fill that void. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll have to wait and see. Right, that will wrap up this this episode of Compcast. Again, I'm not really sure what we'll do with this series, but we'll have to wait and see. The Paris roundup. Thank you much, Reinforce, obviously coming on, chatting about it. It's always super interesting, and yeah, I hope we can do one of these or just something else later on in the future. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Our social media is up there somewhere, and you can go follow us on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, thanks guys, and we'll both see you soon.